I find it absurd of how painful it is to deploy things. So I like to hack, as they say on Hacker News. I like to build things scrappily, and it is crazy how much knowledge about many different things you need to really successfully do this. So you need to know design, you need to know front-end architecture, you need to know backend, you need to know the database configuration, you need to know the model schema thing, you need to know so much stuff. You need to know authentication. Oh, there's just, I don't know, so many things that you need to know if you just want to build a really simple app. And what gets me the most is deployment, because you've been working on your thing in development and it's been going fine, and then you want to put it to production and it's just so difficult and so opaque. It's so difficult to find out why it's not working and what is going wrong. I've been using Vercel recently for my latest project. It's so nice. Vercel is so nice. It's so convenient the way it works, how you can just deploy your front-end applications there and easily update them and everything. It's just so great. Before of this, for front-end stuff, so I'm still using this VPS. I have a VPS on DigitalOcean, and my servers, my backend servers on there, but my front-end application also was on there, or still is, for my old app. And I haven't been using Docker, which is a deadly sin, but usually when you research this stuff, people recommend to use git clone to clone your repository, pull it, and then, like, if you update it, you pull it, and then just install everything. The problem with this for me was that the RAM of the VPS droplet is so small that it was a hit and miss if it would work or not. And I would have to kill everything on the app. I would have to kill everything, and then like the server and everything else that might be on there, like the database, and then there would be enough RAM available to run npm install or yarn or whatever. So later I realized I became frustrated with this, and I realized I could just do this locally and then SCP, so basically copy, but over SSH, I could copy the build files into the VPS and then just serve that. And that works quite well actually. And I would still more or less do this. For some reason, this is not really a problem for the backend. They just need to run npm install. But so for the front end, you need to run npm install, and you need to also say react build or whatever. And that usually would get me. And so recently I stumbled on these problems again. First, I tried to have a backend for my current app, and it was super slow. So the app would just crash after a couple of usages, and I'm still not super sure as to why, but I thought that probably the database was too big, that there were too many words in my database or something like this. And I thought that was the problem, that I had too many things running at once in this VPS droplet, using too much RAM, and that would cause it to crash. Maybe that's the reason, because there's like a similar problem I have without the Postgres database. So in case it wasn't clear, I had MongoDB and an Express server and the front-end application. But then I also added MongoDB for then I also added Postgres for my latest project. And then that is when I had problems. So because of this, I stopped using Postgres. I just moved all the data locally, which I think is also fine. And after some weeks, I realized that my old website that uses this VPS was still super slow. And I saw that the Postgres process was using 100% CPU pretty much all the time. And I killed it a couple times, but then it just came back, and this was odd. So I searched for this, and I found out that on Stack Overflow, this is actually a virus. So because I had an open URL string for the database to connect to it, I got a virus. And how did I get there? So when I wanted to get Postgres working for my backend on that server for my new project, how do you connect those actually, right? You need this URLs connection string basically, and it was such a pain to enable that. So basically my mistake was that I used a simple password because I didn't expect to be hacked right away. I just didn't think about it. And so I used I think 123 or something, like a 321, I forgot, like a really simple password. And yeah, I got hacked. And this means that they were able to get the Postgres user. So there's a Postgres user in Postgres. With this user, apparently it's like there's some script that can mine whatever. I don't really understand, it doesn't matter. I just killed this user, and then I just uninstalled Postgres later, and that seems to have solved the problem, I hope. If not, I'll just get a new VPS or something. And I obviously now change the password to something really complicated. But this brings me on to the next thing in this topic. This topic being how annoying DevOps and deployments and all this stuff is. So to get Postgres to be opened up, like if you actually want it in production, you need to have this connection string, this connection URL, and for that, so it will just not work, right? And you might get an error message like the server is not accepting a response or something. And then, so what you have to do, if you have to enable the port in the firewall, so the UFW, and okay, so you do this, and it still doesn't work, and it still gives you like a cryptic error message. And so finally, I found out that actually it was the other way around. So first I did this, what I'm going to talk about now, and then finally I realized it's this firewall, and there was no error message for it, and it was really frustrating. So the other thing is that you have to go to some Postgres configuration files and then change some stuff in there that Postgres itself will also accept sort of foreign IP address access. And just finding these files is really annoying because they're like in different places depending on which version of Postgres and Ubuntu. So they're in different locations depending on where you're at. And yeah, so finding them is really tough. Then later I found that there's this command you can find stuff with, like you enter find and some option and then the file name, and then it will just give you the path. But I mean, this is some, like I'm not on Linux or Ubuntu every day doing this kind of stuff. So obviously I don't know this I don't know this easily. I don't know this by heart, top of my head. So there's like these two files where this applies to where you have to change and then it works. Anyways, now to my final annoyance. So I recently built this leaderboard with Phoenix, where I'm using Phoenix as a REST API, and it's super simple. So what Phoenix itself does is super simple. However, like the deployment, I tried to deploy it, and that was smooth. It was difficult, smooth sailing, and then something happened that really annoyed me. So deploying it was fairly okay. I had to properly installing Elixir in Phoenix was a bit tough on Ubuntu, because on Mac it's quite easy, but there you have to, so all these dependencies and all that stuff, but that was fairly straightforward. And then, yeah, setting the environment, so everything was fine and dandy. And keep in mind that with these things, it's not so easy to see. If something goes wrong, it's not super obvious what is going wrong, and it's not so easy. You can't really test how it's going wrong. So, for example, it was complaining about me not having the correct database user or something. And I forgot what the fix is, but it was a good example where you don't really know, okay, should I put the database stuff into the connection string? Should I change it into the configuration? I don't know, like what exactly do they want from me? And anyway, so I got everything working even. And I have like a little bit of experience with this. So like when I first did this, it was such a nightmare. Like when I first deployed React, like 4 years ago. But now like I'm a bit more versed in this. But then, yeah, so Phoenix was running and working, and I could even do a GET request, get a list, and on my local front end, like in my local development on my front end app, it was working flawlessly. The curl in the terminal also worked, so when I just do a curl get, but on my production, so the same app deployed via Vercel, it didn't work, and it gave me like a really strange error message. And so I found out that the reason it didn't work was that it was blocked, mixed, blah blah blah, or something with mixed. I looked this up, and so the reason is that I think my front end and my backend in this domain, they have the HTTPS, they have an SSL certificate, but this Phoenix application, it does not have a HTTPS, and you can't have mixed HTTP and HTTPS, which is, I just love DevOps, I just love when you work on something, you want to deploy it, and then you run into these problems, and you have to fix them, otherwise nobody else will. And so I try to get the SSL certificates on Phoenix, and I did all that. It's just basically this big configuration file that I don't really understand, and with all these options, that do certain things. And there's like a port 443 in there. I don't really understand why. Maybe it's some proxy thingy. But yeah, so that's that. And it still doesn't work. And the error message is cryptic. It just crashes with some cryptic error message. And then Googling this error message, it's like the people, they say on Stack Overflow, maybe the Phoenix process doesn't have read access for the SSL certificates. So you should change them. So I changed them and it still doesn't work. But I don't know if I didn't properly change them or if the reason is something else. So it's so difficult to debug things on DevOps. It's really not so nice. And yeah, so this is what I have to still fix, this SSL thing. Wish me luck. Well, I hope you found this interesting and have a nice day.